Yes, Mr. Chair. Ms. Hottie Hensley,
Here.
Ms. Mary P. Bagby, Ms. Linda Davis, Dr. Patricia Yeager, Mr. Tim Denton,
Here.
Dr. Mumby Anderson, Dr. Lakeisha Gant, Ms. Nicole Hole, and Mr. Mark Evans.
Here. Thank you, Dr. Hooker. I need someone to amend or adopt the agenda, please.
I make a motion that we adopt the agenda as is.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Seeing that there's none opposed, we will move on to the next part, budget hearing. Dr. Hooker?
Yes, thank you. I will ask Mr. Growner to come to the podium.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hooker and Mr. Evans. Board of Education, thank you all. Let me make sure this is, and we'll turn it on and off. There we go. All right, so this is our first, as Mr. Evans mentioned, our first public hearing on the FY26 general fund budget, as well as the millage rate, which we'll get to a little bit shortly. Just kind of wanted to give you some updates. At the May board meeting, we were still waiting on final tax digest numbers. We do have those numbers now. Y'all are probably well aware that notices went out. Y'all probably have received your notices. So I think those assessments went out right after our board meeting, I think around May 15th, somewhere around there. So we're just going to kind of give an update on that. This is the same slide presentation, just kind of updated, so I'm not going to necessarily hit on every slide, but if, again, stop me if there's one that you have questions on, but I'm just going to kind of hit the highlights. So our tax digest increased by 8.66%. That is the final number for this year. We originally budgeted 6.5%, so that is a much bigger increase than we anticipated, which is typically the case as you try to go conservative to start with. So with that additional tax digest increase, this is our recommendation to the budget. We mentioned this at the May board meeting, adding 3 certified officers at an estimated cost of $300,000, 14 non-certified or unarmed officers at an estimated cost of $840,000. The 14 would be at each elementary school. That's where that number comes from. The 3 certified, and we're going to get into that a little bit later in the presentation. The 3 would be floating positions, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. We did add back deferred maintenance of $1 million. I think you've heard us mention at several board meetings that we've kind of tackled the HVAC system, thank you to Mr. Gilbert and our SPLOST projects, but now we have a roof issues we're kind of looking at. We do have several roofs that we probably need to replace or repair in the next several years, so that deferred maintenance will come in handy in that realm as we try to figure out an avenue to work on those projects. We did add the addition of a sustainability coordinator. I think from our discussions at the May board meeting, we did add that into the budget. Estimated cost, and looking at DeKalb County, who has a similar position, putting it on kind of our pay scale would probably look like, with benefits, about $133,000. So with all those changes, and I'm going to kind of keep it in mind, our fund balance, we roughly have about 2.59 months with the budget that's presented tonight. Standard is typically 3 months, so we're a little short of that. State of Georgia had about 4.7 months at the end of FY24. Of course, we're finalizing FY25. So again, our recommendation was not to use reserves this year to present a balanced budget. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip expenditure comparison real quick. So our total budget grew on the expenditure side, which is typically what you look at, by a little over $13 million. 11.8 of that is in salaries and benefits, which is typical. Roughly 8.5 of that is from unfunded state mandates. And then we've added the positions, the officer positions and sustainability coordinator. So when you get to this slide with the budget summary, you can see right now we sit with a balanced budget. So we estimate we'll begin next year with a fund balance of $55 million, and the goal would be to end with $55 million as well. So with all those additions, we were able to come up with a balanced budget. I think, and then the next slide we're going to go over a little bit later, the timeline at the very end. So at this point, those are just kind of the key updates, was really the tax digest piece. And then the sustainability coordinator position, and basically having a zero or a balanced budget at this point. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Scott. We're going to have a presentation from each department, as we kind of go, she's going to talk about academic and student supports, and then we're going to follow that with a couple other presentations, and I'll come back at the end and say, thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Griner. So to give you an update regarding the budget proposals or recommendations from academics and student supports, then I'm going to break this up by academics and student support separately, because there's a total of 23 different budgets that are covered across this division. So we're going to start with academics, and in FY25, you see that our total budget was $8,549,605. Our proposed budget for FY26 is $8,810,881 for an increase in $261,276. So I'm going to break that down for you a little bit so that we can better understand why there is actually an increase that we are requesting. There were several reductions that we did make in consideration of ensuring that we do have a balanced budget and potentially decreasing our total budget for this school year compared to last year. And the reductions were done in the form of our curriculum resource coaching. We've had several resources now for at least 2 years, but during that time, we've been contracting with the actual publishers of those resources to come in and provide coaching to our building leaders, instructional coaches, and teachers. As a part of the reduction, we did ensure that our content coordinators have been a part of that so that they can continue to support with the coaching that is needed, but rather than coaching around the use of these resources, then we are asking our content coordinators to focus on the teaching of the standards using the resources to support the teaching of the standards, because we want to ensure that we aren't just teaching the resource verbatim and it's not aligned to our standards. We really need to focus on the mastery of the standard for our students using these resources. The other thing that we did for reductions was the outside consulting contracts. We had several contracts for individuals coming in to provide professional learning, to provide some coaching support for different district leaders. And so we are cutting back on some of those contracts so that we are able to actually increase our available funds for some other areas that we did need to increase. Also, our staff conference attendance, while we do support and encourage all staff members to continuously grow, continuously learn, and participate in professional learning opportunities, we did ask that they limit that such that they are doing no more than one that would take them outside of the state. We know that the travel associated with professional learnings can be very substantial, so we've asked that each member of our department do no more than one that is out of state, and possibly even look at virtual options for professional learning. They are still encouraged to participate in some of our state professional learning, ensuring that they are up to speed on our state laws, our state standards, and building those connections and collaboration across other districts for those who have similar or Java-like opportunities. The other thing that we reduced was our summer curriculum work. This is when we would bring teachers in to assist our content coordinators with the revision of our curriculum portal. At this point, we feel that it is fairly stable in that we have not added any new resources that need curriculum writing to go along with it. So much of what we do now is actually just revisions. And so as a part of our content collaboratives that our instructional coaches do along with our content coordinators, they are doing that work throughout the school year. And we found that to be far more impactful in that we're able to get feedback on a monthly basis regarding any updates that schools are recommending to our curriculum portal based upon the work that teachers are currently doing, and we aren't waiting to the summer to try and remember all the things that we potentially wanted to get done. And so we are hoping to see a cost savings there. So with that in mind, we did have a substantial increase in the form of our curriculum consumables and workbooks that were previously covered by ESSER funding. And so last year, this current year was the last time that we were able to cover that, and that was in the amount of just over $600,000 that was covered through ESSER funding within all of our resources that have the consumables or the workbooks that we have to purchase on an annual basis to replenish at the school level. We also added in the purchase of band uniforms for both of our high schools. It has been quite a while since they've had new uniforms, so we did budget for that, which is right at 120, a little over $120,000 for both schools combined. And then we've added in the refurbishing of our science kits. It's on a 3-year cycle, so this is the year to refurbish our K through 8 science kits. As you'll remember, we have not adopted a resource for K through 8. We instead are using a variety of different resources that includes lab materials for our students within the science curriculum. And so that is on a 3-year cycle, and the refurbish of that is about $160,000. The one thing I do want to note, as Mr. Griner mentioned, the sustainability coordinator position is being added, but that will go into district services, not within the academics and student supports department. However, we are looking to contract services for grant writing through our Office of Innovation Strategy and Governance. So that would be covered by Mr. James Barlament. When we look at student supports, which is the other side of this division, we had an FY25 total budget of $946,934, and for FY26 proposed budget is $809,506. That's a decrease of $137,428. And the reduction mainly is due to the decrease in the consulting contracts as well as the staff conference attendance. These departments were also asked to make some of those same cuts. One of the things we did have to add would be the Leader in Me materials for our schools that were not a part of the grant. So for any schools that were already implementing or had implemented Leader in Me previously, they were not eligible for the grant funding that we used for all other schools. So when it comes to adding materials, refurbishing their materials, then we do have to cover that through general funds. So that is pretty much academics and student supports. Are there any questions? Yes.
I have a question. I have a question about student support. I don't know if this fits here or not, but the student support, does that consist of all the information that the students get concerning what's going on in the school, like student code of conduct and things of that? Is that part of student support or what?
So within student supports, it can contain some of that. So the code of conduct does come out of our Department of Behavior Support. So yes, that does come from there.
And one more question. I wanted some of the books, hard copies of the student code of conduct, and I couldn't get it, and they said I had to go online, and I really would prefer the hard copy. And is it in a way that we as board members can get some hard copies to pass out in the community to get students ready for the next year?
Yes, so our code of conduct is available in 2 forms. It's either online, but then we do have some copies that are hard copies that are available at every school. And so all the parent has to do is to request that they would prefer a hard copy versus the online, and they can get that from their respective schools. And so the code of conduct that you all approved, I believe 2 months ago, that will go to the printer. And once that's printed, then it goes directly to the schools. We do keep a few hard copies here in our registration area should a parent request it when they come to register. But for the most part, it is available online, and they can pick up a hard copy at the school.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Scott.
this time, we will ask Mr. Dan Swartz to come and speak about human resources.
Good evening. Let me present to you the operating budget for FY26 for human resources. A year-to-date comparison of our operating budget shows an increase of $54,000 roughly. FY25 was just over $500,000 at $513, $137, and FY26 is increased to $567, $349. A big note there that nearly half of that operating budget is from the special education residency-based teacher apprenticeship. That was approved by the board last year for a 3-year program, which is $248,000. So to break it down a little bit further for you, we did reduce about $95,000 from our budget around consulting services, some refining of our recruitment practice, a real focus on more sort of cost-effective measures like online and focusing on our homegrown talent. And then as well as the academics, we did zero in on sort of the professional learning for HR staff and try to limit those out-of-state conferences and the number that attend. And then again, the increase, as I mentioned before, the $248,000 for the special ed residency-based teacher apprenticeship. This is really used to develop this critical need pipeline for special education teachers. They are just not out there right now, and so we have to look at innovative ways to create our homegrown, fully certified special education teachers. And so because that is the big focus of our increase in our operating budget, I do just want to highlight where we're at with that. So we, if you remember, we launched Cohort 1 in January after the board approved it. We started with 4. We have 2 participants. The other 2 have been waitlisted. Those 2 participants have completed their first semester and are doing great. They are on track, so we're very excited for that. The feedback that we're getting is that they are getting the support that they need to matriculate through, and that they have hands-on job-embedded learning that help them not only in their current role as a paraprofessional, but also towards the coursework that they're completing in college. Cohort 2 will launch in the fall of 2025. We just started our recruitment process for that, and we had over 50 plus applicants. So we got more applicants this year. We expect that to continue. We invited 11 for our final interview round, and that is going on right now. 9 of those 11 are our current CCSD employees. So again, we're really focused on homegrown talent. And we're very excited that we did extend an offer to one of our Teaching as a Profession pathway graduates to be a part of the program. And so we're very excited because we see that as a tremendous pipeline for our students to matriculate through that pathway and then into this program. Our HR priorities, we believe that this budget will help us focus on our priorities of obviously recruitment, onboarding, supporting our current staff, and then the development, as we mentioned, with the residency program and other opportunities that we provide to our staff.
Mr. Denson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I see for the residency-based teacher apprenticeship, the cohort 1 had 2 participants. Now we have 11 people for the final round. Is cohort 2 also going to be 2 participants, or is there how many participants will be that?
No, we hope to have 10 plus. So we have 11 finalists. We hope through those 11 finalists we'll have about 10.
Okay.
And then we'll do another cohort here in the winter. Then we'll do another cohort in the spring. We hope to put 20. That 248 accounts for roughly 20 to 25 participants. And so we'll meet that we hope to meet that throughout the year. And
Okay.
we'll get billed based off of the number of participants that we're putting through.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you very
Schwartz.
much.
Thank you.
Now, we'll ask Mr. John Gilbert to come and do a presentation for our operations department.
Good evening. I'm pinch hitting for Dr. Askew tonight, so don't give me too many hard questions. Overall, and the slide is not up here, but fiscal year 25, Operations had a budget of $14,354,589, and had reductions throughout that of about 2.14% for fiscal year '26, and new budget of $14,046,777. And we'll go through some of the detailed departments in operations. Hitting the button too quick. Okay. Okay, yeah, there wasn't a slide, so I threw some numbers together. So district services decreased their budget from $168,960 to $39,194, and that's primarily there was roughly $125,000 allowance for additional furniture, for supplemental furniture for schools that weren't involved with the SPLOST program. So we're able to reduce that budget and try to reuse some of our surplus furniture that we store at Gaines Elementary and different places. Custodial services, we actually had a slight increase, and that's primarily due to the increase in square footage for the overall buildings. They are keeping the same staff level, but they're able to, they've had to add for some additional equipment and supplies, as well as some training for the custodial staff. Plant Services was able to do a reduction in their budget of approximately 3.1%. For 25 was $8,295,435, reduced down to $8,030,977. Again, there was some vehicles that were purchased last year, which they don't need this year, and also some equipment that I'm working with Plant Services to be able to replace it under the SPLOST program versus the general fund. Transportation did have an increase from $1,900,000 to $11 to $2,206,000. Reasons being number of field trips, increased number of field trips, purchase of new routing software, some repair of buses, and also purchase of replacement batteries for the EV buses. I think that was about $50,000 for the batteries. Safety and Energy was able to do a reduction, $1,713,632 down to $1,421,251. Again, I think they had did a reduction in their inventory, and as well as they're not going to have to replace as many fire alarm systems because they got a lot more done with the fiscal year 25 money, and they were supplemented by safety grants for that. Technology did have an increase there, 1.6 million, 7,340, and then to 1.670, 703. And again, that's primarily due to the expansion of the wireless network and the capacity within the district. Any questions? Yep.
So my first question, and let me apologize to my colleagues for being delayed. I apologize for that. A lot of things going on right now. On the two questions, one around the last one, the technology. Mm-hmm. Now that we're increasing wireless capacity, what does that do with that preponderance of hotspots that we bought years ago? Are those still in use? Is that now obsolete, or does this eliminate that, impact it in any way whatsoever?
I believe we still have hotspots available as needed to give to students or staff.
Did this plan purchase, does it eliminate the need for those hotspots?
I don't believe so, because I believe the hotspots are more utilized off campus,
right?
Where our network doesn't reach. So I think, again, we've got increased size in some buildings, which requires, more infrastructure and things like that.
So this expansion is purely internal to our existing facilities. It doesn't reach beyond that.
Correct.
Okay, that was one question about that. The other question, I think you talked about transportation a little bit, did you not? So in the transportation piece, when we made the purchase of the electronic buses, did we not include these replacement batteries?
No, they were not part of the original purchase package.
Are they required? Are they necessary?
I think anytime you have, something of that nature, that's the new technology, it's because if you lose a battery, you lose the entire bus. So versus being able to replace it. So I think it's a valid purchase.
So that's what concerns me, is if we know that now, did we know that then? And if we knew that then, why wasn't that included in the original purchase price? So that would be something, a forward-looking thing to make sure that we don't make another purchase like that. Yeah, so that was it on that. What else did you report on? I'm sorry, trying to remember.
District services, custodial, plant services.
Plant services. Commendable, I think that was the one that I understood absolutely without any question. Okay, so what I'll do is when I calm down, I'll try and remember the other question, but thank you so much for those two answers.
Thank you, Ms. Cowper.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. And I will do the presentation for our security. Our chief is at a conference this week. So wanted to share with you back in the fall of '24 with the incidents of safety concerns that we had in neighboring districts and with this shooting at the high schools. We had spoken with board members. We went around and did met with our PAB committee and others concerning the safety of our students in this district, met with several board members who are concerned, how can we help with our elementary schools to ensure that they have safety or someone on campus to protect them as well. We had looked at various opportunities as to how we could fill those positions, and this is what we're proposing. We're proposing that we have, if you look at our chart here, we're proposing currently we have 14 armed officers and 13 unarmed officers. And our proposed, for next school year, we are asking for 3 additional armed officers and 14 unarmed officers. Those 14 unarmed officers will be placed at all of our elementary schools. We will divide the district into zones to have 2 armed officers to help assist and visit those schools. As I shared with you guys earlier in the school year, we have a relationship with our Athens Clarke County policemen where they are in the vicinities of our schools, especially our schools that are outskirts, Cleveland Road and J.J. Harris, where they stop in and visit at times, but we will also have our officers to be in charge of those quadrants to assist with our unarmed officers in those areas. Pardon me. So security and safety continues to be an important for our school district and the uncertainties that are happening, so we want to ensure that we have someone there to protect our students at the elementary schools as well. Questions?
Ms. Davis?
I'm sorry.
No.
So, yeah, this was very alarming to me to see that we are doubling the size of that fleet of the officers that are going out are going to be present in our schools. And again, I'm looking for something program-wise that justifies that. So I know you said that several board members, I'm not aware of that, and I'm not aware of any report that, informed us of any outcomes of that. But
If I'm not mistaken, we had this discussion publicly concerning our elementary schools and meeting, I believe we had town hall meetings, meeting with parents and others concerning the safety issues of our students. And they were saying, what are we doing to ensure that our elementary students are safe as well? At one point, they were saying, how can we get officers into our elementary schools as well? That was the conversation that we had publicly.
so you want them in the schools,
Oh, no,
but the
no,
problems seem to occur in the classrooms. And so that's what I'm trying to understand, why increasing the number of officers per school would alleviate that problem or address it. I'm just trying to understand, we're twice as many now.
They're happening in classrooms, but we have unarmed officers who will be there to assist administrators to visit classrooms, to do classroom opportunities, or speaking to students about the importance of safety to deter this from happening in our schools. But this is something we discuss openly in the public. And throughout, as I speak to our neighboring districts, if you recall our neighboring district over in Oconee, where they had a big town hall meeting asking that they get 12 officers in all of their schools. Same thing in Barrow. Neighboring districts are struggling with the same thing. All of our schools need to be protected.
And so the average, it's, what I'm hearing you say is that it's like the neighboring schools also have 2 officers per elementary school?
What I'm saying is that you will have armed officers who will be in cars. Your unarmed officers are your individuals, if I'm correct, who wear the gray shirts, who will be unarmed officers who will be in the schools to assist with our administrative team and working with our students and speaking of the importance of safety issues throughout.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Bagby?
So, Dr. Hooker, are you saying that we're going to have 14 unarmed officers?
Ms. Bagby, could you
and-
talk in the microphone, please? We can't hear you, and the people at home can't hear you, ma'am.
Okay. So I was asking Dr. Hooker, is he saying we're going to have 14 unarmed officers and 14 armed officers, but that's for the whole entire Athens-Clarke County school system?
We will have a total of 27 unarmed officers and a total of 17 armed officers in our district. As currently, if I don't believe we placed a slide up
It's there.
top.
It's on
And currently, if I go through our secondary schools, yes. As she's pulling it up, I will share with you. Currently at our high schools, we usually have 2 armed officers, 5 unarmed officers. At Clark Central, I believe they have 3 armed officers and 5 unarmed officers in our building. Clark Central is looking at 1,900 students. That's due, and that's why you have additional personnel there and the spread out of their campus as well. And the unarmed officers, you have 1 at each gate. You know, there's 1 at Waddell and 1 at off of Baxter. And then you have the other 3 roaming within the building to assist as well in doing other duties. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm just trying to wrap my arms around, again, what, is it more external threats we're concerned about? Or is it just do we have a number of incidents inside of our school where our SROs really do perform some significant work? Or do we have anything other than the visits and?
There have been incidents where we've taken knives off of students. I'm not sure this year, but I do know of last year where we have taken guns off of students. But we have been very fortunate in that in every instance something has happened, a student has immediately either gotten off the bus or gone to administration and said, I've seen this. So it's, if you see something, say something. Our students have been very diligent in sharing that with our administrative team. So that's what we're dealing with.
So if approved, I would love to see us measure our climate responses on this, because I'm just concerned about what the environment looks like and feels like to our kids in school. So I mean, the unarmed people, I'm not as concerned about them because we have other social work people in the schools that kind of blend in and they just seem to morph. They seem to, whoever does whatever. But just the increase causes me concern that there's more attention paid to misbehaving when we really.
I don't think it's about misbehaving, it's about safety. It's not about misbehaving. I'll tell you, for instance, majority of our, as we call them, gray shirts, our unarmed individuals have been around for a while. The students know them. They build relationships with those individuals and they feel comfortable in doing that. I can tell you from this standpoint, other school districts surrounding us have the same fear that we have. Who do we leave unprotected? We have to have someone in those buildings to assist, and I believe our unarmed officers, with the training that they received, will be there to assist with the safety issues that may occur at our buildings. There have been instances where we've had to shut down our schools due to there may be an incident that's happening in the community and someone is running across campus or someone is lingering outside of our buildings, and having an officer, unarmed or an armed officer, has really assisted our administrative team in how to handle that situation, have been beneficial in having them there.
Mr. Denson?
Thank you. I mean, yeah, as we talked to the last one, I mean, I also just do have some concerns about a big part of it is just like how big of an increase it is happening in 1 year. I mean, for our unarmed, we're more than doubling the number of officers, going from 13 to 27. And I guess I would, it seems very rare that we would ever see that large of more than 100% increase of any personnel group in 1 year, because it's a very radical increase in the number. So I mean, I guess I'm a little surprised that we're not trying to, go from 13 to 20, measure that, see what the needs are after that, potentially go to 27 the following year if that addition of 7 didn't seem like it was enough. Part of this is just for the basic HR things, like that whenever we've talked about this with other positions that have been talked about, that whenever you create those positions, it's much harder to take them away, even if it doesn't seem like the need is there. And it's also a little bit difficult for us to recognize if the need is there. What if we do jump to 27, but really if we had gone to 20, it would have done the safety measures that we needed to see. I guess, I think along with what Ms. Davis is saying, I would love to see some statistics that showed that we needed to have this large of an increase to suffice. And then I also do have the same concerns that are being addressed, that if you look at studies, there definitely has been shown that the number of disciplinary citations that are happening at schools increases. The number of arrests of students does increase whenever you increase the number of officers. And of course, we could say, well, maybe that's because crimes were happening and there was danger and therefore we need to do it. But there's also the possibility that whenever you tell somebody they need to be looking for something, oftentimes they're going to find it, even if that wasn't an immediate threat. So with that, I mean, I definitely, if we do have some research showing why these numbers are the numbers that were being proposed. And then the second thing is, I guess I'm curious, how many social work, and we don't have to, and we understand if we don't have this right now, but love to see exactly how many social workers we have partitioned out also at all of the schools. I know we have been doing some increases in that, but that's also been shown as a really effective way of trying to combat especially some of these more explosive, dangerous incidents that were happening, when really there's a lot of mental health issues that are happening that need to be addressed. I want to see us taking steps that are going to make sure a kid never gets a gun, even tries to go there, rather than a kid gets a gun and goes there, but then an officer stops them. I would like to be even more proactive before that and having more of an investment there.
Okay. We can get the statistics for you, but I do want to remind you, we did have a robust conversation concerning this after the incident at Appalachia and what needed to take place for the following year. I don't know if you guys recall that, but if we are talking about reducing the number of unarmed officers or armed officers, how do we can work together to decide who's to be placed where. Because you stated how many social workers, if I'm not mistaken, we have a total of 14 to 15 social workers. Am I correct in that? Including our McKinney-Vento individual, we have 14 social workers that works with us, and we have a total of 7 or 8 psychologists and trauma specialists. We have a total of 2. Will you speak in the mic? I'm sorry.
We have 2 that are district-wide, but then we have 1 in each of our secondary buildings, so every middle school and every high school.
Okay. Ms. Hensley?
Yeah, to clarify this, I just want to break it down because I know Mr. Denson's saying that we just jumped up this huge number. The fact is that, correct me if I'm not hearing this correctly, is that we have X amount of elementary schools, we have X amount of middle schools and high schools. We haven't had, parents came and were very concerned because of what happened with our neighbors. We have not had any officers in a lot of those schools. We jumped up to that number because we are trying to protect every school in our district. And so that's why that number is double. It's not just because we're doubling the number because of the trouble. It's that we're either leaving some schools not protected and we're just halfway protecting some. Like the community did come together concerned about this. And I think that it's not about necessarily incidents in the school even. It's the parental fear. I'm a parent, you're a parent. The parental fear of your child being protected. And the reason that number has jumped from 14 to 28 is because 10 of our schools weren't protected at all. So now we're going to put somebody in each place. Am I correct? Am I correct in this?
You're correct. All of our secondary schools are covered with officers. Our elementary schools, we heard several times from parents, emails. I believe you received emails as well as board members from parents who are concerned about this as well. How are we going to protect our elementary schools? And if you look back in your emails, I believe that happened in October, September, and may have received one in November. And at our town hall meetings, they spoke out against that as well. What are we doing to protect our elementary schools?
Seeing as I'm the last speaker on this, yeah, I'm with Ms. Hensley on this. But I understand the perception. There is a real, school to prison pipeline, and that's what we are trying to avoid. But unfortunately, every time I go to a Georgia School Board Association meeting or training on a subject like this, the thing that they always say, it's not a matter of if, but when. And until our country recognizes that we have a real issue with guns and turn that, and the appropriate bodies that deal with that actually do deal with that problem, we have to play a defensive game. And this is a part of that defensive game. I don't particularly care for this. I do want to make sure, though, that the SROs have an understanding that, that their job is to protect our school, not to enforce the law, and I think that our SROs do a very good job of that. I've seen them work with some of our students, and in some cases they've been able to de-escalate things in the community before they even jumped off. And so I see the good, but I also understand your points of view and your fears, and I share them. But I don't know. I just don't want this to come back and haunt us if, God forbid, something like Appalachia happens here, because this is the clip that they will play. All right, thank you. Moving on to the next one, Dr. Hooker.
Mr. Griner?
If you just go to the last one, I think that's, yeah, I was just gonna walk through the timeline and see if y'all had any questions for me. So we did run the ads as required by law. Those ran on May 23rd, May 25th, the last one we ran yesterday. I've confirmed all those with our tax commissioner's office, so we're in good standing on all of those. We're having the first hearing tonight. We'll have the second one tomorrow night, the third one next Wednesday, and then the final approval will be at the board meeting next Thursday. So, and I'll be happy to answer any additional questions y'all may have from my presentation or anything else I can.
Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Denson.
I'll just say, yeah, I appreciate y'all putting in the sustainability officer position, and if that makes it through, I think it's going to be a productive, and it's going to receive cost savings from it, so I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Diz.
So I still have questions about that. Again, in terms of the roles and responsibility of that position, and, is that a new position, and where does that position reside? What are the duties of that position? How impactful is it to either the future or where we are currently? Is that position going to be one that looks at how we operate, how we can become more sustainable in our current environment? Or is this a person that is going to be a go-to person to go find resources to answer those kinds of questions? What direction do we have for sustainability to put this position in place? That's my only question about sustainability. I think it's important. I think it's important that it become the way we do things as opposed to a position that oversees something or looks at how we do things, right? So if it's not integrated into the fabric of how we operate, then I'm afraid that one person is simply going to be unsuccessful in being effective in bringing about long-term change. That is my concern about sustainability. Not that we don't need it, but that it should be indeed a way of how we do things. So I don't know that. I would love to see that job description. I would love to see what that position is going to grow into. I would love to understand what the measurements are for this person's effectiveness. Do they get to come for a year and figure it out? And if that's the case, I would rather us not do that. I would rather we create the need and understand who we are and what we need, and then hire that expertise. So again, I'm concerned that we need to make some more informed decisions about how we continue to grow our administrative staff.
Okay, and I do want to share with you that we've looked at other school districts who have this position. It's more to this job than just sustainability. They will be working out of the operations department. And Mr. Gilbert, would you step to the mic and share some ideas as to how we can use this position?
Yes, I think that we have an opportunity, to utilize a great resource, because right now, as far as with our systems, our plant services, things like that, it's myself and Troy Bassett that are the ones that are overseeing new HVAC programs, lights, things like that. So having another person in there that can help the operations side look at light fixtures, look at cost-benefit analysis for mechanical systems, look at our energy uses at our schools. And one of the first things that this person would do would actually help with the energy audit that we need to tell us, okay, which of our schools are using the most electricity? Why are we using the most electricity? But also have that bridge to the education side so that we can dial it in with the STEM teachers in the schools to talk about the careers and opportunities available through sustainable energy. So I think it'll be valuable to the district. I think it's going to help the operations side, since we are about 85 to 90% of the sustainable activities within the district. So I think it's going to be a good support, and also kind of bridge that gap with the teaching side as well. So it's going to, I believe it's going to aid us. They're not going to have to learn for a year. So the key is to get the right person in that position to help support us and help support the district. And their measurement will be, energy reduction, sustainable practices and things like that we're incorporating district-wide throughout all of our facilities.
Will this person have expertise to create an audit? Or have you already done an audit to see where there are opportunities for sustainability?
We've done a level 1 audit. This person will work with, because you would hire a consulting firm to actually do the physical audit, but however, we can do level 1s ourselves, which is basically analyzing our utility bills, gas rates, electrical rates, the usage, things like that. We already have that data, but again, there's 2 of us right now. So the hope is that this will help supplement some of that, and also we can make smarter, decisions going forward that benefit the district and the community.
I won't belabor this, but my simple ask is, absent an audit above level 1, which is what the two of you can do with a myriad of things that you already do, why wouldn't we hire a consulting firm to come in and do that audit that would give us at least a baseline of where we are in terms of opportunities to benefit from sustainability and changes in how we're doing business? I think if we're looking long-term at they're not imagined, but we do know that we have potential to have losses in revenue coming in to operate the district. Why wouldn't we, at this moment, when we have just enough money, to go ahead and do that complete audit of what it would take to make this entire operation across all of these 21 schools and whatever buildings we have, something that would be meaningful for us to be able to prioritize financial decisions going forward. Absent that, I don't know that another person, unless you need somebody to manage the contract when we hire somebody to do that next step, I don't know what's coming after that. If you drop me into what you just described as a sustainability coordinator, I would be looking for which company am I going to hire to come in and do this audit to move forward. And so I'm not speaking in a vacuum. I've just lived this experience a few times in my life and in my careers. But I would rather see us make I think I heard it most recently, I read it in an article. I don't want us to do better. I want us to do what's best. So I think hiring a person is better than nothing and better than what we have now. But is that the best decision for our long-term goal? That's where I would like to see us be. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, seeing as we have exhausted our questions for today on the budget, shall we now move to the millage rate portion? Oh, okay.
Okay.
Mr. Greiner?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Just a few slides on the millage rate. Oops, a little too fast there. So the millage rate for FY26 was tentatively set at 18.8 mils. Again, we're keeping in mind tentative till we do the final approval at the next the board meeting on June the 12th. So that was set back on the board meeting on May 8th. Leaves the millage rate the same as FY25. Talked about this briefly in the budget presentation. Reassessment of properties produced a tax increase of 6.46%. I want to emphasize reassessment of properties. We're leaving the millage rate the same, but just because property values went up, there is, as in the guidance that we follow, there is a tax increase because of some people may see it, some may not, depending on that reassessed value. That was the 6.46%. So you may say, oh, the digest went up 8.66. Where's the other 2.2%? That is actually new growth within the digest. So that would be anything that was not present in 2024 tax year, which is a calendar year for the tax digest, and is now present in the 25 digest. So that could be new construction. That's mostly what that entails, is new construction. And that typically runs in that 2% category historically for Athens Clarke County. Probably higher at certain points in time, during peak construction, but lately, if you look at the last several years, it's been in that 2.3% increase. So in order to have no increase, you have to calculate what's called the rollback rate. I know y'all have heard me talk about that the last couple of years. That rate would be 17.659 mils, or a difference of 1.141 mils. Basically, the rollback says you take not the new growth, but the reassessed growth, and say, okay, what do we collect? What was our earning potential in 24 with taxes? The rollback rate will get you the same in 25, and it takes out the increase in the assessed value. That's kind of a simple way, and probably confusing way to explain it, but that's essentially, it's taking that reassessment back out and saying, okay, if you want to collect the same thing you had in 24, this is the millage rate you would need in 25. Again, as we've talked about, we have a balanced budget with it at 18.8 mils. Again, with some of the unknown factors we have, federal funding down the road, the Promise School Scholarship we've talked about several times. I feel like at this time, as discussed in the board meeting, that 18.8 mils is probably, just with some of those uncertainties, is probably the conservative way to go at this time. Some property owners, again, will see an increase and some will not. It depends on what their assessed value was in 25 compared to 24. And again, as I mentioned, those notices were mailed out, I think, a few weeks ago. So And I want to thank publicly the tax assessor's office, because this year was probably one of their more challenging years getting those out. And Mr. Dunnigan does a great job with his staff over there, and we're able to get those out in May, which means we'll be able to collect taxes in October, which is also huge for cash flow for the district. As we have talked about, we get roughly 55% of our revenue in a 2-month period. I've been in districts where you didn't pay taxes till December. That doesn't work well with cash flow for school districts, so we appreciate their efforts. Again, this is kind of a recap, the growth of 8.66%, which I just went over. Last year, we were at 9.31%, so we did have a slight decrease in the growth, but still 8.66 is really strong, steady. You know, it's not that much of a decrease. We do factor in a delinquency of 1%. Our tax commissioner office does a tremendous job collecting taxes. We do pay 2.5%. Under Georgia law, they are allowed to charge us 2.5%. I only know of a few districts who do not pay 2.5% down the road. That is a conversation we could potentially have if we wanted to, but I will point out that Georgia law allows them to collect up to 2.5%. So, and probably 99.9% of the districts pay that 2.5%. We did factor in 1.2 million for delinquent payments. This year, we're already at like 1.3 million. So as the digest continues to grow, of course, the delinquent, you know, that 1% continues to grow as well. Again, the millage rate, 18.8 mils. Estimated net amount from property taxes, 146.5 million for next year. So again, roughly 55% of our total general fund budget comes from property taxes. This is if somebody asks you what is the value of a mill, based on our current digest, a little over $8 million right now. So you can see last year it was 7.4 million. That's the 8.66% increase. And again, the millage rate, this will be 4 years in a row if approved at 18.8 mils. 2022, it was at 20 mils. The board made a decision to lower it to 18.8, and we've stayed steady at that level since then. So, and again, the same timeline. I just put it in both slide presentations. And I'll be happy to answer any questions as far as the millage rate, any of the information that's been published. We are required to publish the notices of these meetings as well as our 5-year tax digest history plus the current proposed year, and we have done all those ads.
Any questions from the board?
I don't have any questions. I just want to commend you. Thank you so much. Either I've heard it enough that I actually be starting to understand it. I have fewer questions this year. Thank you. I'm sure I've got some, but they didn't seem that pressing when I wrote them down. So
Yeah,
I'll
that's
check back
fine,
with
Ms.
you.
Davis. You put them in the document we mentioned, or you can ask them at the next 2 hearings. That's fine as well. So, yeah, and I appreciate that. So, yeah, sometimes I think the more you talk, you get confused just trying to talk through it. But I think over the years tried to, the new growth versus the reassessed growth is huge when you start trying to look at it. So.
Mr. Denson?
Thank you, Mr. Griner. And I think your warnings about how many unknowns we have going on is well taken, and making this, I do worry about just further backlash, with the homestead exemption, the way that future legislation about making the board and all school boards have to possibly vote every year and such to opt out. And I do worry about some of those things. So I want to make sure that we're looking responsive. I think the best thing that we could consider would be, trying to see if we could get a low-income homestead exemption passed, so that those homeowners here in Athens who are struggling, who are on, maybe older Athenians who are on a limited budget, that they don't get priced out of their homes and pushed out of their homes whenever gentrification and development's happening around them. So, and I think that would, I would love if that we could maybe start having those discussions maybe at this fall when we have our retreat, so that we can make that request to the state legislature for them to work with us to create that. I think that would be a good thing to take, especially if we're not going to be able to lower the millage rate this year. So.
I want to echo the sentiments of Mr. Denson. I think that we really do need to have that low-income exemption. One of the reasons why I voted the way I did on the opt-out, opt-in issue was due to that, because I have so many people who are being priced out of their homes. And Ms. Davis and I spent a portion of our last summer, trying to help one of the constituents in my district to be able to stay in the home that she was born in, and she's in her 80s. So it is a real problem, and we've got to figure this out for the people, and with the people. And again, thank you, Mr. Greiner. Once again, wonderful job. We really appreciate the diligent hard work of you and your staff. Please take that back to them.
I will. Thank you so much.
Does anyone have any more questions? Okay.
I think back on that, I was very impressed tonight and wasn't expecting the kind of in-depth breakdown of academics, HR, operations, and I think that's it's very helpful. So I appreciate everybody's time setting that up, and I think it's very helpful for the public to understand too. So.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Having said that, we will now be moving into public input. There is no public input tonight. We had no one sign up. I would like to remind the public, especially those who are watching, that you are allowed to sign up till just here at the meeting. So you could just show up, and as long as you get here before 6 o'clock tomorrow, you can sign up, and we would appreciate the public's input. We pay taxes too, and so it would be nice to hear from y'all. So having said all that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion for adjournment.
All right, can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? All right, all right.